What's up? Welcome in another lunchtime live on your Thursday. You're almost there. You're at Friday, Junior, ahead of Valentine's Day weekend, and some of you just went, oh shit, I forgot about it. We don't forget about it on this show because surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly, Valentine's Day is actually Vegas Mac's birthday. So that's coming up. He will actually be with me on Lunchtime Live tomorrow, a rare Friday appearance for Mr. Strawberry himself. But as customary on Thursdays, the black shirt's in the building. TJ, what's going on this fine Thursday, my friend?
I'm just wondering how the strawberries are going down today. That was such a debacle yesterday. But
Yeah, that was the definition of off the rails.
I hope he's extracting whatever he needs to extract, and and I hope he's ready.
If you missed last night's show and you're familiar with the show Friends, last night's episode was the one about the strawberries. You can go back on any of our social channels and probably catch that link. But we got some stuff to talk about today. We've got the United States Olympic hockey team about 30 minutes away from puck drop in Milan as they begin Olympic play. Macklin Celebrini began Olympic play with a bang today as he gets the first goal for Team Canada. I don't think anybody was surprised to see that. That team, man, when you look at their freaking power play unit on that team, that's what you see in freaking nightmares. We're going to talk about how we're projecting based on what we know that the U.S. is going to roll their lines out in their first game today where they'll take on, who the hell are we playing? Latvia, I believe it is. I just dropped a "we" there. Did you catch that one? You didn't actually fire on me for that one.
I did. Latvia, I believe, is the homeland of Arturs Urbe.
This is true.
Legend. So, I'm sure he's got a couple going, hoping for an upset today.
Yeah, we've got a couple of things in there. T and I are going to try and drop a couple goal scorers here before that starts. That's coming up at 1:10. Arizona time, so 12:10 for you West Coasters out there. The rest of you can do the math on your own time zones. That's the one funny thing when I always talk to Herb from the Herb and Raj podcast. We got to catch up with those guys. It's been a couple of weeks, but trying to figure out where he's at because Raj is in Texas, Herb's in Birmingham, and the first question anytime we're going on each other's programs is what time is it for you, so we can figure out the time zone since Arizona's got their. We don't change clocks, but we spend half the year in one time zone and half the year in the other, and I can't wait till a month from now when we get the hell out of that and back on West Coast time. Plenty of stuff going on today. A lot of interesting stuff. A move that kind of slid under the radar, team. We've been talking about who we think's going to stay in the playoff race, who's going to fall out, who's going to make moves, the roster freeze for the NHL because of the Olympic break, then the actual trade deadline. But the Devils acquired Nick Bjugstad in a trade with the Blues right before the freeze. Kind of an interesting move there for the Devils. What do you make of Bjugstad in New Jersey?
Well, I think he's going to give them size, obviously, down the middle, which is a huge move for them. You talk about Nick Bjugstad. This is a guy who went to Arizona a few years ago to resurrect his career. They got him for a league minimum contract. Dude winds up putting in 20 goals. And then, with the move, I don't think he's really fit in that well with St. Louis. I mean, St. Louis has been a disaster anyway, but it gives him size up the middle. He's a distributor. He's kind of a finisher. This is going to be a good third line guy, fourth line guy for the Devils. So, and he's coming cheap, right? I think he's coming through at 1.75. So, he's also under contract for next year at 1.75. So, good move for the Devils. But as I talked about yesterday, I think they're going to clean house. Once they get eliminated, they're going to just start ripping this management team to shreds.
That is not a factual statement, Vegas Mac, in wife's email. It's been plenty of times he hasn't had a hat on. Yeah, I do like the move there, and I do agree with you. I think the second we know the Devils are gone, it's going to be okay. Things aren't working here. I mean, St. Louis and New Jersey both, just things aren't working. Things aren't working. Oh, my God. There's no way. I don't believe that for one damn second here. What do you think? Are we buying it or are we not buying it?
Well, I'm buying it because the DNA extraction guru is probably too busy with the white coat on, and he's
It's
probably
true.
got the glasses on, and he's like I gotta get all the DNA out of the strawberry, so blah blah blah. And so I believe it's
Is
Mama
that
Mac.
it might be, and actually, now that I'm thinking back about it, I actually have some insider trading information that probably is Mama Mac for reasons that we're not going to get into in the show. Do you feel any worse about your Olympic dark horse pick, Chechnya, not Chechnya, as the one guy swore we said on YouTube yesterday? They get blasted by Canada 5-0 today. Does that affect your look at them as a dark horse in this tournament or not? Or is it
No,
unfair to gauge them against Team 1A of the two?
I think that's exactly the case. And for those of you who would like a comparison, that would be like comparing um, Washington to Indiana and Ohio State. And Washington rolls into Indiana and gets blasted, and then they go to Ohio State and get blasted. And you're like, well, this team sucks. Like they play two of the top teams, so let's just cool the jets there.
Connor Hellebuck getting the call today for the U.S. in goal. Again, that game coming up here at the top of the hour. Another game going on at the same time. Germany and Denmark will also be in action at the same time there. We'll get a little more into the projected lines for the U.S. team. But, this little pain in the ass bone, like right here?
Yeah.
It's kind of right there. Mine's still displaced from never fixing it the right way. And a lot of MLB players so far, and we talked about this a little bit earlier this week, Francisco Lindor, Corbin Carroll, Jackson Holliday, all going to miss time. And it's interesting because the sports doc, David Choi, if you've gone through on and you're familiar with him on X, has kind of explained this in a little more detail for the people that don't know. It's a pain in the ass injury. It is a very common injury. It's ironic timing that we've got three very important players to their respective teams all dealing with this. And 3 to 4 weeks. Well, it's not 3 to 4 weeks. It's a process here, and a lot of the guys that have dealt with this will tell you it ends up turning into like a couple of month injury because you can come back and you can play, but the power and how long it takes you to get the power back in your swing is usually an additional couple of months here. So a lot of teams dealing with that injury right now. And again, we're not talking about, fringe platoon outfielders here. We're talking about Francisco Lindor, Corbin Carroll, and Jackson Holliday. So again, a lot of injuries popping their heads out already before we're fully into spring training here. One guy who is not going to be reporting to spring training, and I'm trying to figure out why in the hell we waited this long to do this, but apparently the Philadelphia Phillies are expecting to trade Nick Castellanos any minute now and have told him not to report to spring training. I don't understand the timing of this because they've had the whole damn offseason to work this out. They knew they weren't going to have him back. They didn't want him back. It was time to start shuffling some of the cards in Philadelphia, and now they tell him not to report to spring training. If you've got a team that is a fringe playoff team, does Nick Castellanos do anything for you depending on the price that you have to give up to get him?
I think it depends on the price. I mean, he's shown in the past that he's got decent power, but he's very streaky. But I mean, yeah, if you can get him for $5-10 million, I think he's worth a signing. Especially if you're a fringe team, because if you fall out of it, you can probably flip him for an asset at the trade deadline.
All right, and I'm going to go back here before we go forward, but let me go back here for a second because I'm going to put you on the spot. Billy V checking in. I missed this one here when we were still talking about Olympic hockey. He says, watch out for Switzerland. They're his dark horse. The goalie is escaping his mind, so I'm going to put you on the spot. Who is the goaltender for the Swiss?
I forgot.
Mac's favorite team because they sit on the fence just like he does.
The goaltender is... I don't even remember now. And I'm looking here and I don't have any stats right here for
Is it Gustafsson?
Oh no, it's Akira Schmid and Rito Berra.
That's true. Very true there. So there you go.
And Leonardo Giannoni.
Hey, Leonardo Giannoni. The back to the Castellanos thing here. And Jeff Passan today, if you haven't checked it out on ESPN, a fantastic article from from Jeff about the Dodgers and the Kyle Tucker thing and why that was the final straw, and really goes into it. Again, we've talked about Jeff on this program plenty of times. And actually, 9 minutes ago, let's go back here. I'm all over the board today, but this is literally coming in as we've seen. 9 minutes ago, owed $20 million, Nick Castellanos has been released by the Philadelphia Phillies, and that is as of 9 minutes ago per ESPN. So now he can sign with any club for the league minimum. So now you're talking about a guy in Castellanos that you can get on the cheap because you don't have to worry about paying him $20 million because the Phillies got that covered for you. I think this is an ultimate bag fumble here by the Phillies. The first thing we talked about at the end of last season when Philadelphia yet again fell short was they tried to get rid of Bohm last year. They talked about getting rid of Castellanos. Obviously, Harrison Bader's not coming back. He's already signed with San Francisco here. And now they just let him walk out the door for $20 million. I kind of liken him a little bit to a couple years ago, J.D. Martinez, where he was kind of floating around. He was there. He wasn't on a team when the season started. And, this is a Philadelphia team that's already got some issues going into the season. The Mets have done plenty of things to be competitive in the East. The Braves, just when we thought they were going to come into a season healthy, they're already dealing with stuff with Spencer Schwellenbach here. The Nationals and the Marlins, cute stories, not a factor. I mean, this is a division that's wide open, and even if you got next to nothing for Castellanos, why are you waiting till literally a week before everybody's in full spring training, and then you're just going to release the guy and get absolutely nothing for him? Not a Phillies type move at all out of Philadelphia.
I would like to know what happened here that made his he's 2 years removed from 29 home runs and 100 plus RBIs. So what in the last 2 years have the Phillies done to add to their roster to eliminate a need for Nick Castellanos? I don't think they've done anything. I think that this guy, you mentioned a couple of teams right there. The Braves, that'd be a great landing spot for him. I think Mac's team would probably be a good landing spot if they want to sign anybody this offseason other than my guy, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. But Castellanos make a great, just throw him in a DH, give him 4 at-bats a game.
Yeah, I would expect by the time we come on next Tuesday, he's on a new team because that one, it really does surprise me. The Dodgers made a couple of moves today. Nobody's got deferred deals on these, so that's a positive for everybody that hates the Dodgers right now. Max Muncy, a 1-year contract extension worth $10 million guaranteed. They've also agreed to re-sign utility man and fan favorite Kike Hernandez to a 1-year contract for $4.5 million. Muncy's contract includes a $7 million salary for the 2027 season that will not be started on time. I can guarantee you that. And a $10 million team option with a $3 million buyout for the 2028 season. Muncy, 243, 19 home runs, 67 RBIs in 100 games last season. Remember, last season, a horribly slow start to the season, then he threw the specs on and was seeing the baseball better. Muncy's been a certified San Francisco Giants killer for his entire career, so a couple more moves there for the Dodgers. Chris Bassett has signed a deal as of this morning, or as of late last night, with the Baltimore Orioles. 1 year, $18.5 million, I believe the numbers are on that one. That is correct per Jeff Passan. So the Orioles, another team that's trying to keep pace in the AL East. And we spent a lot of time last night, talking about the NFC West and its dominance in the scope of football right here. And I'm looking at this AL East, and Tampa's kind of in a weird spot. You're still playing in AAA Stadium, the stadium of the future, if you will, for Tampa, allegedly finally going to get built, and that'll do a lot for them. But they're kind of in a weird holding pattern right now. But the Yankees, out of the other 4 teams in the AL East, are the team that really hasn't done a damn thing this offseason.
I mean, other than they re-signed Goldschmidt, right? And other than that, I don't know if they've done a whole heck of a lot. The Bassett move it's very intriguing. I think that's a great sneaky move by the Orioles, though. Great sneaky move. Bassett was he's going to eat innings for you. He's a guy that can get in there and be a 5th or 6th starter on that team. I think that's a good move.
Yeah, and I think it's a really good move for a team in Baltimore that we had high expectations of last year, and they definitely missed the mark. pitching was a big issue for them, and they've done their best to address it. Obviously, the big move they made was bringing the polar bear to Baltimore. I'm fascinated to watch, however the hell I can watch baseball, because thanks a lot, Rob Manfred, this year. But to watch the AL East race between Toronto and Boston and Baltimore and the Yankees, because we know the Yankees are going to be a factor. We are expecting them to be a factor, but that's 4 teams that there's not going to be 4 spots for here. So somebody's going to be on the odd end looking out. We know in the American League, we've talked about the Mariners and what they've been able to do. Obviously, Detroit, who's got 2 alternate throwbacks this year that are effing sweet. Back to your Tom Selleck Magnum PI kind of style days there. The AL East is fascinating because I think everybody would expect that we're going to get 3 teams out of the AL East, but you never know, because what are we going to get out of the Astros? The Astros are leaning into the new version of the Astros. We've talked about the A's from an offensive standpoint. Do they have the pitching? Probably not yet, but who knows? The Angels, thanks for participating, I guess we can say, with the Angels, because they're in a whole different ballgame. I think the American League, man, is shaping up to be absolutely fascinating watch, especially the American League East.
Oh, 100%. And, you might be looking at a situation where, would you be surprised if neither the Yankees nor the Red Sox made the playoffs? At this point, I would not be surprised.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people would be surprised there. I'm interested to see Toronto and how they bounce back. And we know this, and we talked about it, and you talked about it a lot towards the end of last season. They lost a guy who was a huge catalyst for them getting to where they got, but they have a lot of firepower on that team. A lot of guys got to step up in a lot of key moments for them last year, and it was your prototypical definition of a great baseball team all the way around. Can they duplicate that? We know what long runs for baseball teams, especially in the postseason, can do to the team the next year. So I think the expectation for Toronto is extremely high, but whether or not that leads to anything, it remains to be seen. Interesting article on The Athletic today, T, when we switch over to the NFL here for a little bit. A bill in the Iowa State Senate was introduced Tuesday seeking expansion of its economic growth attraction program with the goal of luring an NFL franchise to the state, specifically the Chicago Bears. Quote, while Illinois and Indiana squabble over this issue, we are ready to go off the sidelines and get into the game, Iowa State Senator Kerry, whatever the hell your last name is, said in a statement first reported by the Des Moines Register. Bringing an NFL team to Iowa would attract jobs, tourism, and fans to our state and give us the opportunity to showcase what Iowa really has to offer. I can't in my brain even conceptually put together the fact that the Bears could be playing their games in Iowa, but Illinois has had plenty of time to get this thing settled, and the Bears don't like the terms that are coming to the table. I'm starting to think that this is a little more serious than we all thought it was when it first came out. The Waterloo Bears, does it do anything for you?
Oh, my God. And then what's next? All right. Are we going to do a game in a cornfield or some nonsense? Look, this has legs, but they're very small. I would like to think that Illinois or Indiana can figure this out, but we thought we've kind of seen this before with the Raiders, because the Bay Area had a ton of time to try and figure something out. And what happens? Vegas says, we'll buy you a stadium and you can just play here. And they said, okay, we're out of here. So, I mean, the precedent is there, but I mean, I can't imagine Chicago without the Bears. I couldn't imagine it.
No, it would be criminal. It would be absolutely criminal. And part of it is, and you saw the Bears finally have a good season and play home games in the playoffs. That place was absolutely rocking. Is Soldier Field a little outdated? Sure. I don't think anybody would argue that. And there's still plenty of places that you can do stuff. We've heard this whole project with the White Sox and the South Loop and the pictures of it, if that ever actually happens. Absolutely amazing down there. Chicago, the second city. I mean, losing the Bears, even though wouldn't be that far. Just not playing in Chicago would be absolutely friggin' criminal there. A couple other notes in the NFL. Dave Canales brings in Darrell Bevell to help with the offense in Carolina. Carolina looking to duplicate and kind of bounce themselves forward here. The Titans or the Giants have hired former Titans head coach Brian Callahan as their QB coach. An interesting article I saw yesterday, T. Now that we know the coaching carousel is all done, and I wanted to get your take on this. Of all the coaches that went to all the places here, give me the one head coach in a new spot, whether it's John Harbaugh with the Giants. You know, we talked obviously a lot last night about Clint Kubiak with the Raiders. Give me the head coach in the new spot that you're most intrigued by. Not necessarily the best one, but the one you think can make a difference as we go through the 10 jobs that we had available now that we know everybody's new coach. What's the one that really was like, kind of jumped off the page to you and you're like, that's a good fit, that's in a good spot?
I can't wait to see what John Harbaugh does with this young offense. And especially if they're able to keep Robinson in the fold. I mean, this is you've got, like, look what you have. You have a second-year quarterback who's shown signs of greatness last year. You got a running back who is absolutely would run through a brick wall for you. You've got great receivers. I mean, Neighbors barely played it down last year, so you don't know how he's going. I'm sure he's going to come back next year being ready to go. If his IHOP commercials are anything to any indication. This is a good offensive team, and so I want to see if they can build. I mean, I didn't have high expectations for Jackson Dart this year. You're a rookie. When he got thrown in there, it was like, see what you got. I think they really like what they've got. So let's see what happens with this Giants team.
Yeah, I think that's, again, and we kind of talked about that last night when we made our way too early Super Bowl picks here, and I think the Giants are going to be a very popular pick. Maybe not to win the Super Bowl. There's going to be some people. Listen, if you want to start to handicap this about where you think the money's going to go in the offseason, it's pretty easy to figure it out. I think the Rams will be the most bet team to win the Super Bowl, with the Super Bowl being in Los Angeles. I think the Chargers are going to get a lot of action and a lot more money than they probably would because the Super Bowl is in Los Angeles. Obviously, the Seahawks, I think, will attract a lot of money. Buffalo's going to attract a lot of money. I'm looking at the teams, and we see this every year, and this is what makes the NFL the NFL. The teams that didn't make the playoffs last year. And when you're looking at those teams, because we know a couple of those teams that missed this year are going to be in the mix last year. Obviously, the Lions and Ravens top the list. But then you get a little farther down. You've got Cincinnati. You've got Tampa. You've got Kansas City. You know, and the thing with Kansas City is the timing of when Patrick Mahomes can come back and be healthy. Can they figure out a way to kind of stay in the mix and just get a seat at the table? Then you've got other interesting teams like Atlanta, Washington, Minnesota, Dallas. And then we get into like the Saints, the Colts, teams that I don't think have a freaking prayer. The Giants at 4-13, as we've talked about, popular team. Of those, of some of that group of teams, who's the team that you think can kind of get into the mix next year and maybe take the role of the Seahawks coming out of nowhere or the Patriots coming out of seemingly nowhere next season?
I don't know if anybody's going to duplicate what the Seahawks or Patriots did. I'm very interested to see what happens in Tampa, especially with this Mike Evans situation. But there is a point where Tampa needs to get younger at wide receiver, and this may be the time that they do that. They've got great running backs. They've got, Godwin was injured most of the year. So if they can bring him back, Johnson was good. So I'm interested to see what happens with Tampa Bay. The defense is concerning for me with the Bucs because it seemed like this year they signed a lot of guys to one-year deals to give it another run. And, they finished how they finished. But Tampa's on that list. New Orleans is kind of intriguing, but I don't think they're a playoff team. Indianapolis is intriguing, but they have some decisions to make as well on the offensive side.
Yeah, I'm looking, and as much as I don't want to do this because it ends up burning you in the end, like several bad choices you can make in life, but it's Dallas. And, we saw offensively that Dallas didn't skip a beat. Free agency questions, some things that are going to affect how Dallas goes on the offensive side. But the biggest thing I think when I look at the Cowboys going into next season is the change of defensive coordinator. Matt Eberflus is out. Christian Parker, the 34-year-old secondary coach from the Eagles, comes over to work on the defense. And is that the thing that can, kind of ignite the Cowboys going forward? Because they have to be better defensively. You can't get much worse defensively than they were. And I'm interested to see how that kind of plays itself out. I do agree with you. I don't think the Saints, as much as they were better than we thought they were, are a playoff team. But I'm looking at the Cowboys because I do believe Dak Prescott for most of the year played at an MVP level. The Chiefs thing is intriguing. If Cincinnati can realize that there is a other side of the ball, mainly defense, and attack those defensive free agents, have a good defensive free agent or defensive draft, centered draft, if you will. I don't know what to make about the Ravens. I'm really high on Jesse Minter as the coach of the Ravens. But again, it comes down to the play of the offense in the clutch moments there. The defense obviously has to be better, but I think Jesse Minter being there is going to make that defense exponentially better just because they have the right pieces. They just needed a different look and a different scheme there. We've got a couple of minutes here before puck drops in Milan. It should be actually any second now. Let's take a look at this U.S. team as they get ready to go on the ice here. An attempt to take down Canada and get that gold medal, man. When you look at these lines for the U.S. team, I think finding goal scorers is going to be kind of difficult at times with this. Your first line, as far as what we've seen in practice, Tkachuk, Eichel, and Tkachuk. Then you've got Jake Gensel, Austin Matthews, Matt Boldy, Kyle Connor, Dylan Larkin, and Tage Thompson. Those are your top three lines there. Your defensive pairs, Hughes and McAvoy, Slavin and Faber, Sanderson and Werenski here. What do you make of those lines? Because that top line is interesting to me, and that second line is interesting to me. I can't really argue with the pairings, but these are a lot of guys that are shot-heavy guys here. And I think finding goal scorers in some of these U.S. games like today's game are going to be very difficult. I know I like the over today. I like my guy Jake Gensel because he's a big-time player. Anybody you like for a goal against Latvia today?
Well, I like Tage Thompson. I think he's a solid pick. Did you see the Eichel comments about the Tkachuk brothers and the Step Brothers references and all that?
Yes.
What a freaking what would you expect, right? Because look, say what you want about Brady and Matthew, but they're fun guys. They take bang on after their dad. So I love having these guys on the team, and they don't put up with any crap as we saw in the Four Nations. But yeah, I mean, what concerns me about this roster is I see a lot of goals, but I don't see a lot of like playmaking in this roster. And that would concern me if I'm a fan of the U.S. Sneaky pick on defense, Jake Sanderson as a goal scorer or Zach Werenski. If that's your third pair, oof, look out. That's a dynamite pairing right there.
Yeah, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm interested to see how they come out. They're depending on which site you're looking at today. The puck line either -3.5 or -4.5 in this game. Over under total at 6.5. Elvis in goal for Latvia, which will be interesting here. And I think that's the thing that we forget here is when we're looking at this, when we break it down line by line, because it's new to us, because we haven't seen it in a while. These are NHLers going against NHLers, and I saw a great tweet last night, T, and I think it kind of really highlights the excitement of this, if you will. But you're sitting here while you're watching the Olympic hockey, and because everybody's playing for their country, and you're like, now I have to root for guys normally I root for them to fail, and now I'm rooting for them to be successful here. Very interested to see how they come out. Obviously, they were close in the Four Nations. I don't know, though, man. I just watching Canada this morning, like, that's a wagon. I mean, I'm not saying anything that's groundbreaking here, but how do you assess the lack of playmakers as you were just talking about? We've got plenty of goal scorers, but you got to make plays. You got to be able to put the puck in the right spot here. And I think that the way they went about building this team and the lack of playmakers is a little concerning to me.
I don't know if today is going to be the best representation of assessing this team. I mean, Merzlikins is good. Shelovs is good. But this Latvia team, the U.S. should be able to handle their business. I'm interested to see when they play Germany. That's going to be in the group play. That's going to be the one for me. because that's a team that has considerably more talent on the front end. So let's see what happens there.
Yeah, it'll be again, and I think you nailed it on the head there. Everybody's gonna tune in that can. I'm sure people will probably blow this one by because it is Latvia, and they should blow them out of the water here. But I'm interested to see the kind of intensity that they come out on the ice with, because
Yes,
we've been talking about this. We've been waiting for this. Like, how do they come out of the gate here and show us that they're ready to slay the beast that they can't take down?
yep. I mean, and look, everybody's got a week from Sunday. They've got it penciled in, Canada and the US. There are still some good teams, like you said, with NHL players, and they get to try too. So before you lock that in stone, let's see what happens in the group play. I think you might see a couple of surprises. I think you saw one yesterday with the Finns. Although Slovakia is they're no slouch either. So where this tournament, it's interesting, Mike. Where would this tournament be if the Russians were here? Because
Interesting, you bring that up.
That would be a very that would be a dang good team.
Yeah, it would. And Gary Bettman was actually asked about that specifically today in a report on The Athletic by Mark Lazarus. Russian and Belarusian players under the age of 18 could re-enter the international hockey scene as soon as 27, 28 under new IOC recommendations. But the NHL has no current plans to bring Russia back into the fold in time for its 2028 World Cup. We know all the drama and all that stuff there. I do think that's what does end up tainting this, because when you go up and down what the potential roster would be for Russia in these competitions, you're definitely taking one of the biggest detractors to the U.S. and Canada and winning a gold medal or winning the World Cup or winning the Four Nations, however you want to break it down, off the ice. And I do think that's the one thing that taints it, but it doesn't sound like we're anywhere closer to getting that back in the fold here, which is kind of sad, because we're not seeing best on best, and that's what we all want to see.
Exactly. No, that's any tournament. Look, politics aside, any tournament that doesn't include players like Matvei Michkov and Alex Ovechkin, it's Andrei Vasilevsky, it just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
A few other topics that Bettman brought up, and we were talking about this a little bit last night. For those of you unfamiliar with how it works in the Olympics award 3 points for a regulation win, 2 points for an overtime or shootout win, 1 point for an overtime or shootout loss, 0 points for a regulation loss. Bettman has no appetite to bring such a system to the NHL, and Walsh said that he's never had a player approach him about it. There isn't much discussion. We like what we have, and we like the way it plays out over our 82-game season and our playoffs the way we do it. I think it's a little unfair, for lack of a better word, to compare a 2-week tournament to a 10-month season. We like the way our games play out and the way our schedule plays out. We are aware that there are alternatives, but we're not in search of a problem to fix. Have you looked at the Pacific Division, Gary? Because you have a problem to fix. I mean, there's no more glaringly obvious example of why it needs to be fixed than that. But for hockey fans hoping that it gets fixed, it doesn't sound like Bettman has any interest in it, at least anytime soon, or maybe while he's still commissioner, period.
Well, okay, so if he doesn't want to fix that, that's fine. Fix the playoff seeding, because it is going to be a crime that by the conference finals, 2 of Colorado, Minnesota, or Dallas will be out. And that is an absolute crime. And can you imagine what happens if, and once again, no shade to can you imagine if Colorado winds up playing Vegas in the conference final? A Vegas team that right now is under 500 technically. Like, where's that
would be absolutely friggin' criminal, dude.
I guarantee you that they would change it from 1 to 8.
Yeah, and that I don't even like. And we talked about this last night, and we went off of Brandon Marsh's tweet, B_Marsh92 on X last night in his conceptual. And again, I can't give the guy enough credit, man. Like, if you've seen the tweet, he went into some insane detail about why it works and everything. Update from AT&T, the Pebble Beach Pro-Am, Chris Gotterup as far as Mike versus Mac goes, is in the lead as far as that goes at -6. Rio Hitsuyun at -7, he leads. Tommy Fleetwood, your boy, tied for third right now at -5. And Jordan Spieth decided to show up this week. He is also tied at third, -5 there. Any final words for you on this Lunchtime Live Thursday, T? What do you got?
Man, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with this tournament, this hockey tournament this weekend. We made it to the second weekend, so now we're going to start to see some really good action. And if you're watching, don't forget to watch the women's games too, because they are exciting as all get out as well.
Yeah, absolute domination from the U.S. women so far, including beating the hell out of Canada just the other day. Medal count for those. Mac always asks me for the medal count. So Italy first at 16, Norway second at 14. The U.S. is third at 13. They lead in silver medals with 6. So plenty of stuff to talk about, plenty more to talk about on tomorrow's program, Lunchtime Live. Vegas Mac will be in here with me. We'll keep an eye on the MLB transactions as we step closer and closer to spring training. And I believe the first spring training game, if I remember correctly, is the White Sox and the Cubs, which is not that far away. And as well as the Yankees and the Orioles. We are 8 days away from the first set of spring training games. Kansas City, Texas, Arizona, Colorado, San Diego, and Seattle, all in action that day. Plenty of guys still floating around there. Plenty of guys still available. Plenty of guys you can get on the dirt cheap like Nick Castellanos. So for everybody behind the scenes, for TJ, for Vegas Mac, I'm Mike. We'll be back with you tomorrow. You know the drill. We're out.